We're continuing with Halacha Yomi. So we are up to, we're in the middle of doing the Melacha of Dash, which we said is threshing. And when the Tolada, the subcategory Mefarek, extracting. And we were discussing about extracting milk from a human, a woman extracting her milk to feed her baby, and how to do that. How is that permissible on Shabbat? Okay, so the Halacha is like this. We're actually in the volume number 2, skipping to volume 2 for a second, where they discuss nursing a newborn baby on Shabbat, on page 326 in volume 2. Halacha 40. A woman may pump milk into a bottle on Shabbat if her baby is in intensive care. It needs its mother's milk in order to heal and to grow properly. Or if the baby will not drink any other milk or any other food other than the mother's milk. If the only thing the baby eats is the mother's milk and he needs it to survive, you'll be permitted to pump into a bottle and feed it to the baby on Shabbat. The milk may be pumped either by hand or machine if needed. However, if possible, she should pump with the help of somebody else. Since pumping together with somebody else, someone else assisting, will make it that two people did the Melacha together, and that's considered a shinui, and it makes it that it's not such a severe offense, such a severe punishment. Rather, makes it derabanan. Okay. Meaning to say that you lower the severity of the melacha being done, and it's better to avoid doing more melacha if possible. 41. A woman may nurse her baby on Shabbat, even if the baby is not in intensive care or in immediate danger. If the baby latches, she's allowed to nurse him directly on Shabbat. It's considered eating for him. She may even squeeze out a little milk into the baby's mouth or onto the floor in order that the baby should be able to start drinking easily. A woman may even nurse her baby on Shabbat, even if the infant has other supplements like, Enfamil, he has formula and other things to eat. Still, even though she doesn't only nurse, she's still allowed to nurse on Shabbat directly. 42. It is prohibited on Shabbat to express milk into a cup on Shabbat. Therefore, if the infant does not need the milk and the mother wants to make sure that her milk will not dry up, or to prevent engorgement. Sometimes it gets engorged and it's very painful for the woman, so she wants to pump. She wants to express the milk. She can express the milk manually in a way that renders it unusable by expressing it into a cup with liquid soap or into the sink, where you have to pump it and then you have to dump it. You have to throw it away, right? If one cannot find any soap or foul-tasting liquid, one may express the milk into a clean cup and throw it out immediately after finishing. You cannot, on the Surah and Shabbat, to go and pump and to feed the baby with this, or to save it for later. If the baby it has other milk to drink, and the baby can latch directly, so there's no reason to pump, and there's no reason to store the milk. It's a melacha, it's a mefarek, extracting a liquid from the container, the milk from the mom. So therefore it's a surah and Shabbat, and they have to be careful with these situations. Obviously the baby is in danger, and the baby doesn't latch, you'll be allowed to pump to feed the baby the sakana. But otherwise, just to store it or just to alleviate the pain of engorgement would be asur. Now, a lady who wants to pump and she's in pain, right? So she has to do those methods we say: throw it in the garbage or put it into a cup with soap in it. Okay, back to where we are. We're up to page 339, Halacha 12 in volume 1. Squeezing fruits. Included in the Melacha Mefarek is a prohibition of squeezing out liquid from a food, because that's comparable to extracting the grain from the husks. So the prohibition from the Torah only applies to the fruits of olives and grapes, which are considered the most commonly squeezed items, right? Because you squeeze them for their juice or for their oil. Still, rabbinically, is forbidden to squeeze commonly squeezed fruits, like oranges, like apples, and so on and so forth. 13. Fruits or vegetables that are not commonly squeezed for their juice are allowed to be squeezed on Shabbat, because this will not lead a person to a misunderstanding and think that it will be allowed to do grapes and olives. If you squeeze an orange, which is commonly squeezed, so it might lead to someone squeezing olives and grapes. But if you squeeze a watermelon, or you squeeze a peach, or things that you don't normally squeeze for their juice, those will not lead to mistakes, and they'll be permitted on the Shabbat. And even this is permitted even if you had that was your intention from the beginning when you bought them. You didn't buy them for to eat, you bought them for to juice them. That'll also be permitted on the Shabbat. But these fruits can only be squeezed by hand. They cannot be used by a utensil. A person cannot use even a juicer that grinds it manually, or some contraption that you squeeze, you crush the juice in. Still, this is all asur. You have to squeeze it only by hand. 14. A fruit that is squeezed for its juice in countries where it's available in abundance is rabbinically prohibited to be squeezed, even in a country where it's in short supply of the fruit. Right, no problem. All the best. So, for example, you're squeezing fruit in a place where it's available a lot. Right? Let's say there's a country that squeezes a lot of pears. They have a tremendous amount of pears, so they have pear juice. So let's say I want to squeeze in my country where they don't normally have pear juice. Still, it's rabbinically prohibited even in a country where there's short supply. 15. One may hold the fruit to one's lips and suck out the juice. This is both an unusual way of squeezing, that's why it's allowed, and also it's considered more similar to eating than squeezing, since the extraction is being done in your mouth. However, it's proper not to do this, not to suck an olive or grape for its juice, even though technically it is permitted. If one puts the grape or the olive in your mouth and you suck the juice from there, then it'll be completely permitted and there will be no issue whatsoever. 16. You're allowed to squeeze grapes and olives on Shabbat into a pot that contains cooked food, right, to enhance the food. So let's say you have a salad, and the salad needs grape juice, fresh grape juice, to be squeezed on top of it as a dressing, or to garnish, whatever it is. It's allowed, even though usually you're not allowed to squeeze grapes and olives on Shabbat. It's asur, it's mefarek. Still, you're allowed to do this onto food, because it's considered squeezing a food from a food, not a liquid from a food. So therefore, it's allowed. 17. You can only squeeze a fruit onto food when there's more food than the juice, so that the juice will be absorbed by the food. But if it's the other way around, if there's more juice than food, then it'll be asur. Based on this, it is asur to squeeze an orange into a cup that has 2 or 3 teaspoons of sugar. The person could say, look, I took a cup, I put sugar inside. Now I'm allowed to squeeze the orange. Usually Shabbat you're not allowed to squeeze oranges. But I squeezed it not into empty cup, I squeezed it onto food. Sugar is the food. Yeah, my friend, but there's going to be so much more juice than the sugar. So it doesn't work. Also, squeezing a fruit into a cup and then saying, I'll add food later on top. That doesn't count, and it also is asur. 18. When squeezing a fruit into food, it can only be squeezed with your hand and not squeezed with a utensil. Let's say some people, they like to take grapefruits, cut it in half, and eat it with the spoon. A person is allowed to take grapefruit, cut it in half, eat it with the spoon, even though you're going to be squeezing out the juice when you're eating. 20. The most common fruit or vegetable that is squeezed on Shabbat usually is a lemon. Squeezing lemons on Shabbat, according to Sfaradim, is allowed, even into an empty cup, or even to make lemonade or a salad dressing. You cannot squeeze a pickled lemon, but you could squeeze a regular lemon. The question is why? I thought you're not allowed to squeeze fruits that normally are squeezed for the juice. A lot of people squeeze lemons for their lemon juice. So the Bet Yosef explains in Siman Shin Chaf that really people don't drink lemon juice like that, straight. They always add sugar to make lemonade, they always put it into food, they never drink it as is. So therefore, since it's never drinking it as is, it's considered a fruit that is not normally squeezed. Okay, fine. 21. It is rabbinically forbidden to use or consume juices that seeped out of grapes or olives on Shabbat until after Shabbat. Mashkin shezavu. They used to squeeze the grapes and olives. They used to put heavy beams on top of it to squeeze it. So sometimes they would leave the beams. It would take a few days till it would go down, and squeeze more and more and more. So let's say you have juices that came out by themselves. The olive gave out more juice on Shabbat, so you're not allowed to use that juice that came out on Shabbat. It's rabbinically asur. It might lead to people making a mistake and thinking that you can even squeeze on Shabbat. If you use the juice that came out on Shabbat, people might come to squeeze the fruit actually on Shabbat. So therefore, it's asur by grapes and olives. What about other types of fruits, oranges and whatnot? It's only forbidden if the person intended to squeeze it out. But if it came by itself, or let's say a person bought the fruit to eat it, but then juice came out by itself, that juice may be used. 22, one may cut up a fruit other than grapes and olives that is normally squeezed, even though some juice will be squeezed in the process. Let's say you want to put a fruit platter, and you want to cut up oranges. So when I cut the orange, some juice comes out. That's okay. It's permitted as long as my intention was to eat the fruit like that, not to squeeze it for its juice. Okay, we're going to learn from here about squeezing other things besides for food, but that was the fruits. Today we discussed squeezing fruits. Baruch Adonai Olam. Amen. Amen.